There are a lot of tropes out there in the world, specifically in fantasy. There's a lot. And guess what? A couple people that I know, they made a tag around those fantasy tropes. The Fantasy Tropes tag. Hello, this is Pete from Ponderings of Pete. This is the, I think, third tag I'm doing? Yeah, tag number 3. Fantasy Character Tropes tag. So this tag was originally created by Joanna, Abby, Kirsty, and Vish. They all tagged me in it. I was one of the people they tagged initially, and I never got to it, but now I am. Hi! Their channels are linked down below. Their original video is linked down below. Go check it out after watching this. First prompt for this Fantasy Character Tropes tag. The Chosen One. What is a book that you would recommend to everyone? This could be anything. I think the first one that popped to mind was the Thrawn trilogy, and this could be the original Thrawn trilogy or the newer trilogy that came out that's actually entitled Thrawn, Thrawn Allegiance, Thrawn Treason, or The Last Command, Dark Rising. Oh wait, I'm going backwards. I don't remember what the first one's called, and it's all back to white. Anyways, both of them are amazing Star Wars books, and I would definitely recommend them to anybody, especially if you're trying to get more into Star Wars. Other series, if we're looking at different genres, I would recommend everybody read Jane Austen because it is quite entertaining. Discworld is almost there. I have to read a few more Discworld books to actually hey, I want to recommend this to everybody and start being like, hey, yeah, let's go. You should start here. Another one would be Mistborn by Brandon Sanderson. Excellent starting place for the Cosmere and all his crazy stuff that he does. I would recommend Aragon to everybody, especially if you're getting into fantasy, because, it's a very tropey book and you get a lot of, hey, this is what fantasy is in the Aragon Inheritance trilogy. I want to say Malazan, but that's also a conditional recommendation because it's not for everybody, sadly. Next one is A Secret Heir. What is a book that surprised you? And this is turned out to be more than you expected. It's the positive side of things, not the surprise to you with how bad it was. I would say Awakens by Alyssa Kova. I read this a month or so ago, expecting very tropey, and just expected to not really like it as much because I hadn't read much YA in a while, and the stuff that I had read and that drove me away from it was very tropey and vomit worthy and such. I was pleasantly surprised that I liked it. It is relatively tropey, but the tropes are not overdone. And I hear that the series goes away from those tropes as time goes on because it's a 5-book series. So it's not as crazy as those. It's not that it's crazy. It's not as typical as the series goes on, which I am excited to read. I have bought the other books and I am planning to read them in the near future. Next prompt, number 3, is the evil Overlord. What is a book that was poorly executed or a book that fell flat for me? And I would say the Lightbringer series. I did not finish book 2. Mostly because I found a lot of the characters annoying. Basically, the only character trait that a woman could have, one of the big character traits that women always had in the series, was constant insecurity about their bodies. And I understand that is relatively realistic. That's something that many women struggle with. But if that's the only flaw that you're going to put into your female characters, or that's their main personality trait, that gets frustrating for me. That and the men were constantly judging all the women by their bodies. It's frustrating. So I would call that the male gaze. And it just really frustrated me. And the world was intriguing, but it fell flat because of the sense that I got that it felt like it was written by a horny 12-year-old. So that's why that's why it fell flat for me. The next one is The Reluctant Hero. Name a book that you're not sure you want to read. This is actually really hard for me because there's very few books that I don't want to read unless I've already read the first one. I'm not one of those people that looks at Wheel of Time and, well, actually, I probably should use Wheel of Time because I'm kind of nervous that I won't like it. And that's just hearing things like, oh my gosh, Malazan is so much better. Wheel of Time is so simplistic. And hearing some of the critiques of Wheel of Time, I'm like, I really hope I like it. but I don't not want to read it because it's too long. Like, for instance, I just bought the first book in the Recluse saga. I know there's like 20 or 30 books that are in the world of Recluse, and I want to read them all eventually, hopefully. And, you know, there's Robin Hobbs. I think there's 14 books that she has out. 14 or 15. I think it's 15. Because it's not 3. It's like a 16 maybe? I think it's 16 books that she has out in the world. Like, this is a complete trilogy, but she has 16 books that are set in the realm of the Underlings. And I'm excited about that. I'm excited for big investments in long series. And that's also why I'm putting that off, because I don't want to be reading like Malazan, Wheel of Time, Realm of the Underlings all at once. But I don't get intimidated by books much. Let's just say that. Unless they're giant nonfiction history books, I guess. I go after those two eventually, probably. With all the Cold War and Stalin stuff that I'm looking into more. I would say the other one I'm kind of reluctant to read is Malice by John Gwynne and that whole series. Because I know there's been like back and forth about how good it is. And I would like to like it, but I don't know. I'm fixing that though by seeing if I like John Gwynne's writing style by reading Shadow of the Gods this month. So, gotta work my way around my reluctance. The next one is The Lucky Novice. What is a book that was a great debut? I'm going to automatically say Elantris for Brandon Sanderson, because Brandon Sanderson is like amazing, and I thought Elantris was a really good book, especially for a debut. The next one I would like to say is Winds of Strife by Uri Gutman. I'm good friends with Uri over Discord, talked to him throughout this, and I read it last month, and I did really like it, and that's, after this week, that's probably one of the first videos that I'm going to put out, is my review of Winds of Strife. Like, it's not perfection, because I don't think, even with Elantris wasn't a perfect book, but I did really like it. The honorable mention that I can sort of say right now as well is The Dark That Dwells by Matt Digman and Ryan Roddy. I'm in the process of reading that, and so far I'm really liking it. I do hope it sticks the landing with the ending, because endings can sometimes ruin books. As of right now, I'm liking the way they write. I'm liking the way they paint the world, the way the mystery of the world that they kind of tease at in the cover and then sort of start talking to you about. It's an interesting book so far that has kept my attention. The next one is The Mentor. What is a book that is formative in your life? Well, first one, definitely Aragon. Definitely Lord of the Rings. Sherlock Holmes. Actually, I'm probably one of the few people on BookTube that didn't have Harry Potter as a formative book. I didn't read it until I was in high school. And only as like hey, people think this is good, let's read it. And I was like, okay, this is decent. I'm sorry, but it's not amazing. It's decent. I'm sorry, but that's what I think. And then going further, I would also say Way of Kings, because I feel like that, just reading that, especially while I was, stressed out by studying what I was doing, Way of Kings and that whole series, which I basically binged while I was studying, kind of sparked my love of books to a full blaze again, and got me more intentional in buying books and reading books a lot more once I got into the workforce out of college. So Way of Kings is primary attributor to that. The last question is The Animal Companion. What is a book that broke your heart or that makes you smile? I'm going to primarily focus on the books that break my heart, because if a book can break my heart, I consider it a good book. Because if you can make me feel things, you're a good writer. First and foremost, Sword of Kaigen. This book broke me numerous times, and I can't tell you why. Go read it. It's an Asian-inspired fantasy, focuses on a specific peninsula on fantasy Japan. There's fantasy China, fantasy Japan, fantasy Africa, but it focuses on fantasy Japan. This one specific peninsula that is the guardian against fantasy China invading. And guess what? Fantasy China invades, or tries to invade. And there's a battle. The main character is a mom, and it explores so many things. Like, when you initially go into it's an invasion book, that means it's going to be focusing on the warriors. Yes, but also the mother, which is not on the front lines, and there's a lot of deep themes that this goes into. Motherhood. There's a lot of traumatic things about motherhood that it explores. Also, like miscarriage and a few other things, and what it is to be a woman in a highly male-dominated culture, specifically a mother, when you are more of a independent typed woman. And then it also deals into her relationship with her husband and the things that go with that. This book broke me multiple times. That's all I'm going to say. Next up, I would say Malazan, Book of the Fallen. There are numerous times throughout these books that they have broken me. Most recently, in Reaper's Gale, there was a very specific moment that there was a character that you're like, oh, this guy has a very tragic backstory. And it's almost like a desensitized tragic backstory, because they just he mentions offhand parts of his backstory. And then stuff goes down and you realize everything, and broke me. Great book. I think so far as I can tell, it's my favorite Malazan book so far. Next up, Rhythm of War. There are 2 back-to-back moments that collectively broke me in this book. And if you've read it, you know what those moments are. Combination of rage and hate at this one character for what he did, and sadness of what he did to that character, and then another character that is related to the 2 characters that I just mentioned, and it's tied closely to them, and his struggle. Thank you for breaking me, Sanderson. Good books. Since the shelf space has received an influx, I'm going to pick 1 or 2 people that I can remember being newer. So I'm going to tag 2 newer booktubers that I kind of just discovered. The first, newish is relative. The first is Grace Dione. This is her channel. It's linked down below. I'm going to tag her in this tag, as well as Walker Writes 7. He recently hit 100 subscribers. Go check him out. He's linked down below. Both of you are tagged. Do this tag. Yay. If you like this video, go ahead and like it. If you didn't like it, I'm sorry. Give me a dislike if you want. It's only going to fuel my yeah. If you want to see more, go ahead and subscribe. Ring that bell so you can get those notifications of, hey, more posts. And I will see you tomorrow for the next tag.